This version of the Nooteboom Mega Windmill Transporter comes in a standard WSI branded box, and the box is not quite as impressive as those produced for the models for the Nooteboom shop. This particular model is in the colours of Bolk Transport, which is a Dutch company founded in the 1930s. The box is factory sealed, and in time-honoured fashion you can cut the tape, lift the lid, and then you get the parts out. First out is a bag, and there are quite a few small parts which have to be fitted in various places. And next out is the big Volvo 8x4 tractor. The remaining parts are all for the Mega Windmill Transporter, and the first out is the 3-axle Jeep dolly. Next is the turntable and 2 lift adapters. And last out is the Schuyler 3-axle and 2-axle modules. The one thing missing though is the sheet of instructions, and that's a little disappointing because earlier versions of this model did come with instructions. For the assembly, we'll put the vehicle in road-going formation, and we'll start with a little towing hitch at the front of the Volvo, and then go straight to the back to put the light clusters on the end of the Schuyler module units. To mirror the real truck, the 2-axle unit should be at the back of the vehicle. Other parts are provided to secure the light clusters, but they're not used on this configuration. The other thing to fit at the back is a drawbar, and that just presses into place. And because you don't want it dragging along the ground as the truck goes along, you need to place it in the up position, and then you can lock it into place with a pin. Surprisingly, for some reason on this review model, the pin went in at quite a strange angle. The next job to do on the modules is to fit the metal cover plates, and that's easy to do because they just drop straight into place. On top of that goes the turntable for the lift adapter, and you want to position it so that it's over the middle axle. It then gets held in place by some steel pins which pin through the deck of the modules. The last bit of detail to add on the modules is a little control console, and that's been designed so that you can just hook it over and attach it at one corner of the module. Next it's back to the front, and the giant hands will attach the Jeep dolly to the Volvo, and it's a standard kind of connection with the kingpin clipping into the fifth wheel. There are a couple of support legs which are used to support the Jeep dolly if it's not attached to the tractor, but to pose these correctly on the review model, a little bit of plastic putty was used so that the support legs stay horizontal. The last part is the trickier part, not because it's difficult, but it's a little bit awkward. And we'll start by mounting the lift adapter on the Jeep dolly and then pinning it in place. This can be frustrating, but take my advice, don't get angry and throw the whole model against the wall because it won't look so good afterwards. Once the front is done, the process is repeated with the rear lift adapter, which just pins into the turntable. At this point, with the model scraped off the wall and the 2 lift adapters in place, we can join them up, and that allows the vehicle to travel in its unloaded configuration. As shown here, the front lift adapter is clamped inside of the rear one, and once they're properly interlocked, they form a rigid structure. It takes a little bit of fiddling about and adjustment, but it's not too difficult. The last thing to do is then to tidy up the cabling that joins up the 2 lift adapters and try and stow it in a way that looks reasonable for transport. With that done, the assembly is complete and the model is in road-going configuration. Starting underneath the Volvo, the transmission is excellent and the exhaust system is Model 2. The tyres look realistic and they're mounted on detailed wheels. At the front, the Volvo grille is distinctive and there's a number plate, and the model stands out because of the Bolk colour scheme and graphics. Behind the cab there are equipment cabinets, coiled air lines and non-slip walkways. At the rear, the lights have plastic lenses and there are some sharp graphics. The Jeep dolly has detailed axles and good looking wheels. There's a beacon light and equipment boxes at the front and really nice Nooteboom badges on the structure. The Schuyler units are very nicely made with metal wheel sets, and there are tanks and hoses underneath. They have a nice yellow stripe along the edges and the light clusters are detailed too. The turntable on top is really nicely engineered and detailed, and the lift adapter has got a nicely modelled generator. Although the main cable looks a little bit plasticky, the Bolk graphics look great, as do the 2 tiny control consoles. For the review of the features, we'll start out on the test track with the big Volvo, and it has no problem at all travelling in a straight line. The rear wheels are joined onto common axles, and the front 2 axles have linked steering. But as you often see with WSI models, the steering is very detailed, but as a consequence the functionality is not so good. So that means the range of steering movement is very limited, but at least that's better than nothing. There's no problem at all with the functionality of the tilting cab, and that lets you get a really good look at the Volvo engine underneath. The Jeep dolly is a nicely engineered part. It has working suspension on the first 2 axles, and the third axle benefits from working steering. But a little bit like the Volvo, the range of steering movement is quite limited. Still, you can set it and it will trace a curve when pushed. To allow the Jeep dolly to be parked without being fixed to a tractor, there are a couple of support legs supplied, and these just push into place in holes in the front of the Jeep dolly. Moving to the other end of the trailer, the Shoyola modules are a standard issue from the WSI range. They roll well and they've got very good suspension on all of the wheel sets. Each one is independently sprung with small springs. The steering is also very good on these units, with the 3-axle unit having slightly proportional steering, and the 2-axle unit has parallel steering. Once you set it, the combined modules trace a realistic looking curve. The lift adapters also have a great deal of functionality. The tops can be raised up and down and also pushed in and out by the big cylinder. But there's also another feature, which is that you can alter the length of the lift adapter by taking out a couple of pins. So it's all pretty good because the functionality of the model accurately represents the real machine. This vehicle is a mega windmill transporter, so it's good to show it with a wind turbine component. And for this we'll use the Vestas nacelle, which is WSI part number 121008. As you would expect, you have to separate the 2 halves of the trailer and make space for the nacelle to fit in. The next bit, which is installing the load, is actually quite tricky, and that's because it's a little bit fiddly to get the lift adapter to grip properly. So as always, you just need a little bit of patience, some good humour and a song in your heart to get the job done. With the nacelle in place, the one job you need to do is to tidy up the cable that joins the 2 lift adapters, and again it's another fiddly job. With the vehicle loaded, there's some detail to add, and that's some width markers which clip on to either side of the load. They just press in place and they're a good fit so they don't pop out easily. With the nacelle loaded, you can then make an interesting diorama with other models to represent a wind turbine site. But you're asking how big a display space is needed for the model? Well, with the nacelle, the trailer is about 27 inches or 68 centimetres long. If you display the model empty, you can deduct the nacelle, and that's about 9 inches or 23 centimetres. In summary, this is another excellent mega windmill transporter by WSI. It's a very detailed and functional model which displays well with others, and it certainly looks attractive in the colours of the Dutch company Bolk. Overall, it's an outstanding model.